Welcome back, everyone. We're glad to have you here with us. Tonight, we're venturing deeper into the Nevada desert than most dare to go. Beyond Area 51's famous gates, past Groom Lake's dry basin, lies something even more secretive. A place that officially doesn't exist, yet has captured imaginations for decades. S4, the hidden facility that supposedly sits beneath Papoose Lake, where the real secrets aren't just tested, they're reverse engineered. What do you believe could be hidden in mountain hangars that can't be seen from above? Is it the ultimate vault for recovered technology, or the birthplace of humanity's greatest leap forward? You decide. Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's step inside America's most hidden secret. Chapter 1. The Lake That Hides Everything. If you're looking for the perfect place to hide the impossible, you need more than just remoteness. You need geography that works as your accomplice. Papoose Lake, a dry basin 15 miles south of Area 51, offers exactly that kind of natural conspiracy. Like its famous neighbor Groom Lake, Papoose hasn't held water for thousands of years. What remains is a pale, hard-packed clay surface stretching nearly 4 miles across. From above, it appears as nothing more than another scar in the Nevada desert, unremarkable among dozens of similar formations scattered across the region. But that ordinariness is precisely what makes it extraordinary. The lake bed sits in a bowl carved by ancient geology, surrounded by ridges and peaks that rise like natural fortress walls. To the north, the Papoose Range creates a jagged barrier between this basin and Groom Lake. To the south and west, additional mountain chains form an almost complete circle of stone. These aren't gentle hills, they're steep, rocky faces that would challenge even experienced hikers. This natural architecture creates something invaluable for anyone seeking absolute secrecy: total visual isolation. Unlike Groom Lake, which can be observed from distant peaks like Tikaboo, Papoose Lake has no legal vantage points. The surrounding mountains block every possible line of sight from public land. You could hide a city down there, and no civilian would ever catch a glimpse. But the real genius of the location lies in what can't be seen from satellite images. According to claims that surfaced in 1989, the key to Papoose Lake isn't what sits on its surface, but what's built into the mountainsides themselves. The alleged S4 facility supposedly consists of hangars carved directly into the southern slopes, with doors angled to match the natural contours of the rock face. Picture trying to spot such a facility from above. When closed, the hangar doors would appear as nothing more than another section of mountainside. The angles would be perfect to deflect radar. The coloring would blend seamlessly with the surrounding stone. Even thermal imaging would struggle to detect temperature variations through layers of solid rock. The distance from Groom Lake creates another layer of security. Close enough for coordination, far enough for separation. If Area 51 is the public face of classified aircraft testing, then Papoose Lake could serve as the vault where the most sensitive materials are kept away from prying eyes. The 15-mile buffer means that even workers at Groom Lake would have no reason to know what happens at the southern facility. Logistically, the isolation works both ways. Moving materials to Papoose Lake would require crossing miles of restricted desert, visible only to those already cleared for the highest levels of access. No commercial flights pass overhead, no highways run nearby. The closest public road is State Route 375, the so-called extraterrestrial highway, and even that's more than 20 miles away across rough terrain. Weather patterns favor the location as well. The dry climate preserves materials and equipment with minimal environmental stress. Clear skies dominate most of the year, perfect for astronomical observation or testing anything that needs to interact with space. When storms do roll through the basin, they're brief and predictable, allowing sensitive operations to be planned around them. The geology itself offers advantages for underground construction. Much of the Papoose Range consists of volcanic tuff, a rock that's hard enough to provide structural integrity, but soft enough to excavate with conventional equipment. Tunneling through such material would be challenging but not impossible, especially with military engineering resources. Local folklore adds another dimension to the mystery. Native American tribes in the region have long spoken of the area as a place where strange things happen, where lights appear in the mountains at night and sounds carry impossibly far distances. Whether these stories predate any government activity or were influenced by it remains unclear, but they add to the sense that Papoose Lake has always been different. The absence of any visible infrastructure makes the location even more intriguing. Unlike Groom Lake, with its obvious runways and surface buildings, Papoose Lake shows no signs of human activity in publicly available satellite images. The lake bed appears smooth and untouched. The mountain sides reveal no roads, no structures, no evidence of excavation. If S4 exists as described, its concealment is nearly perfect. This invisibility extends to electronic surveillance as well. The surrounding peaks would shield any facility from ground-based radar or radio monitoring. The isolation means no civilian aircraft would accidentally pick up unusual transmissions. Even military aircraft from other bases would need specific clearance to approach the area. For those who believe in the S4 story, Papoose Lake represents the ultimate hiding place, a location where recovered alien technology could be studied, tested, and reverse engineered without any risk of external observation. The natural barriers, the electronic isolation, and the layered security created by its proximity to Area 51 would make it the most secure facility on Earth. Skeptics point out that this same perfection makes the claims harder to verify. If such a facility were truly hidden this well, proving its existence would be nearly impossible without inside access. The lack of visible evidence could mean there's nothing there to find. Yet the geography remains compelling. If you were tasked with hiding something that could change the world, something that must never be seen or photographed or detected by any outside agency, you would be hard-pressed to find a more perfect location than this dry lake bed surrounded by stone walls, invisible to satellites, unreachable by the curious, and protected by some of the most restricted airspace in the world. In the next chapter, we meet the man whose testimony brought this hidden world to light and whose claims about what lies beneath Papoose Lake have captivated believers and skeptics for over 30 years. Chapter 2. Bob Lazar's Revelation. In November of 1989, a man stepped forward with claims that would forever change how the world viewed the Nevada desert. His name was Bob Lazar, and according to him, he had worked at a facility so secret that even Area 51 personnel weren't supposed to know about it. Lazar's story began not at S4, but at Groom Lake itself. He claimed to have been recruited through a contact at Los Alamos National Laboratory and initially brought to Area 51 for what he thought would be conventional weapons research. The reality, he said, was far different. After passing extensive security clearances and psychological evaluations, he was told about a special project at a secondary location. The journey to S4, according to Lazar, was designed to disorient. Workers would arrive at Groom Lake on the usual unmarked flights from Las Vegas, but instead of being assigned to the main facility, select personnel were loaded onto buses with blacked-out windows. The drive south took approximately 30 minutes across rough desert roads, with multiple stops and direction changes that made it impossible to track their location. During these bus rides, Lazar claimed conversation was forbidden, armed guards accompanied each transport, and passengers were instructed to remain silent until they reached their destination. The psychological effect was deliberate, creating a sense of entering a world completely separate from anything they had known before, even at the already secretive Groom Lake. When the buses finally stopped and the passengers were allowed to disembark, Lazar described seeing something that defied conventional military architecture. Rather than surface buildings or obvious hangars, he found himself at the base of a mountain face that looked entirely natural from a distance. Only upon closer inspection could he see the subtle outlines of doors built directly into the rock. These weren't ordinary entrances. According to Lazar's account, the hangar doors were angled to match the slope of the mountainside perfectly. When closed, they would be virtually invisible to anyone observing from above, whether by satellite, aircraft, or even someone standing on nearby peaks. The engineering required to achieve such seamless integration would have been extraordinary. Lazar claimed there were 9 such hangars in total, each carved into the mountain at slightly different elevations. The doors, he said, were massive, large enough to accommodate aircraft with significant wingspans, yet they opened and closed silently. The mechanism was hidden entirely within the rock face, leaving no external hardware visible when the hangars were sealed. Inside these mountain chambers, Lazar alleged, sat craft unlike anything in the conventional military inventory. He described them as disc-shaped vehicles with smooth, seamless hulls that appeared to be constructed from a single piece of material. No rivets, no welds, no visible joints anywhere on the surface. The craft he was assigned to work on, which he dubbed the sports model, was approximately 30 feet in diameter. The interior of these alleged craft was equally unusual. Lazar described cramped spaces with seating that seemed designed for occupants much smaller than average humans. Control panels, if they could be called that, consisted of smooth surfaces that would light up when touched, displaying symbols and patterns he didn't recognize. There were no conventional switches, dials, or mechanical controls of any kind, but it was Lazar's claims about the propulsion system that proved most controversial. He insisted that the craft were powered by a stable form of element 115, a substance that at the time existed only in theoretical physics. This material, he claimed, could bend space-time itself, allowing the vehicles to move by manipulating gravity rather than relying on conventional thrust. The secrecy surrounding S4, according to Lazar, exceeded even that of Area 51. Workers were compartmentalized to an extraordinary degree. He claimed he was never shown more than one craft at a time and was told only what was necessary for his specific assignment. Even bathroom breaks required an escort, and personnel from different projects were kept separate. Lazar's decision to go public came, he said, after witnessing test flights of the craft he had been studying. He claimed to have brought friends to a ridge outside the restricted area, where they observed unusual lights performing impossible maneuvers in the night sky. When security discovered these viewing parties, Lazar said he was removed from the program immediately. The reaction to Lazar's claims was swift and polarized. Supporters pointed to his apparent knowledge of classified procedures and his accurate descriptions of certain aspects of Area 51's operations. Critics noted that many of his educational and employment claims couldn't be verified, suggesting his credentials had been fabricated or erased. Attempts to confirm Lazar's background revealed significant gaps. The schools he claimed to have attended had no record of him. The companies where he said he worked either didn't exist or had no documentation of his employment. Even his alleged position at Los Alamos was disputed, though some employment records did surface years later. For believers, these missing records were proof of a cover-up, evidence that the government had systematically erased Lazar's background to discredit him. For skeptics, they suggested he had never possessed the qualifications necessary for such sensitive work in the first place. Despite the controversy over his credentials, certain aspects of Lazar's story have proven remarkably durable. His description of element 115 preceded its actual synthesis by scientists by more than a decade. His knowledge of specific security procedures at government facilities has been corroborated by other sources. And his basic claim about the location and nature of S4 has remained consistent through decades of interviews and investigations. The lasting impact of Lazar's revelation cannot be overstated. Before 1989, public speculation about alien technology focused primarily on crashed saucers being stored somewhere in government warehouses. Lazar's testimony suggested something far more active, an ongoing reverse engineering program where recovered craft were not just stored, but actively studied and tested. Whether Bob Lazar was a genuine whistleblower or an elaborate hoaxer, his story fundamentally changed the conversation about what might be hidden in the Nevada desert. S4 became more than just a location. It became a symbol of the possibility that humanity's greatest secret was being kept in a place so hidden that proving its existence might be impossible. In the next chapter, we step inside those mountain hangars to examine what Lazar claimed to have seen there. 9 craft from another world, each one holding secrets that could rewrite our understanding of physics itself. Chapter 3: 9 craft in mountain hangars. Walk into a conventional aircraft hangar and your eyes immediately understand what you're seeing. Wings, engines, landing gear. Everything follows familiar patterns of human engineering. But step into the mountain chambers that Bob Lazar described at S4, and according to him, those patterns dissolve entirely. Lazar claimed that 9 disc-shaped craft were housed in the facility, each one stored in its own carved chamber within the mountainside. These weren't identical vehicles, he said, but appeared to be different models, or perhaps craft recovered from separate incidents over time. Some were intact and seemingly functional. Others showed signs of damage, as if they had crash-landed and been transported to S4 for study. The craft Lazar was assigned to examine, which he called the sports model, represented what he believed to be the most complete specimen. Approximately 30 feet in diameter, it sat on retractable supports that kept it elevated above the hangar floor. The hull appeared to be constructed from a single piece of material, with no visible seams, rivets, or welds anywhere on the surface. This seamless construction, Lazar claimed, extended to every aspect of the vehicle's exterior. The surface was smooth to the touch, but not perfectly reflective like polished metal. Instead, it had a matte finish that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When viewed from different angles, the craft's colour appeared to shift slightly, suggesting the hull material had properties unlike any earthly alloy. The other 8 craft, according to Lazar's account, showed varying degrees of completeness. Some appeared to have been partially disassembled, with sections of hull removed and placed on examination tables nearby. Others seemed to have sustained damage during whatever events brought them to S4. Scorch marks, dented surfaces, and missing components suggested these vehicles had experienced violent encounters. One craft, Lazar claimed, appeared to have been cut open along its equator, revealing internal structures that defied conventional understanding. Instead of recognizable components like wiring, fuel lines, or mechanical systems, the interior consisted of curved surfaces and chambers whose purposes weren't immediately apparent. The walls seemed to flow into one another organically, more like the inside of a shell than a manufactured vehicle. The mountain hangars themselves represented extraordinary engineering achievements. Each chamber had been carved from solid rock with precision that allowed for perfect environmental control. Temperature and humidity were maintained at constant levels, suggesting the craft required specific atmospheric conditions for preservation or study. Air circulation systems, hidden within the rock walls, provided fresh airflow without any visible vents or ducts. The hangar doors, according to Lazar, were marvels of concealment. When closed, they formed perfect continuations of the natural mountain slope. The outer surfaces were textured and colored to match the surrounding rock so precisely that detection from above would be nearly impossible. Opening mechanisms were completely hidden, operated by controls located deep within each chamber. Lighting within the hangars came from sources embedded in the ceiling, providing even illumination without casting harsh shadows. This arrangement allowed technicians and researchers to examine every detail of the craft without visual obstruction. The light itself had an unusual quality, Lazar noted. Neither the harsh fluorescent glow of typical military facilities, nor the warm incandescent light of conventional hangars. Each craft was accompanied by extensive documentation, though Lazar claimed much of it was incomprehensible to him. Technical manuals, written in languages he didn't recognize, diagnostic equipment displaying readouts in unfamiliar symbols, and measurement devices calibrated to scales that didn't match standard scientific instruments. The suggestion was that these vehicles operated according to principles outside human scientific understanding. The sports model, being the most complete craft, received the most attention from research teams. Lazar described watching technicians carefully remove panels from its hull, revealing internal spaces that seemed impossibly complex for the vehicle's external dimensions. Components were nested within components, creating three-dimensional puzzles that challenged conventional concepts of mechanical design. Power systems in the craft were unlike anything in terrestrial technology. Instead of engines, fuel tanks, or electrical systems, Lazar claimed the vehicles contained what appeared to be reactor chambers no larger than softballs. These spherical devices, when active, allegedly generated fields that could manipulate gravity itself, allowing the craft to move without conventional propulsion. The seating arrangements within the sports model reinforced the sense that these vehicles weren't built for human occupants. Chairs were sized for beings considerably smaller than average adults, with proportions that suggested different skeletal structures. Control interfaces consisted of smooth panels that would activate when touched, displaying symbols and patterns that bore no resemblance to any human language or numerical system. Storage areas within the craft contained items that defied identification. Crystalline structures that seemed to serve unknown functions, metallic components with shapes that hurt to look at directly, and containers holding materials that appeared to shift and flow despite being solid to the touch. Each discovery raised more questions than it answered. The condition of the various craft suggested they had arrived at S4 through different means over extended periods. Some appeared ancient, their hull materials showing signs of age despite their apparently indestructible nature. Others seemed relatively fresh, as if they had been recovered recently from crash sites or other sources. Documentation allegedly suggested that recovery operations had been ongoing for decades. Files referenced incidents dating back to the 1940s, with craft being transported to S4 from locations across the southwestern United States. Each recovery operation was described as a massive undertaking involving multiple agencies and extreme secrecy protocols. The variety among the 9 craft hinted at something even more extraordinary than the existence of alien technology. It suggested that multiple civilizations or cultures might be represented in the S4 collection. Differences in design, materials, and apparent age implied that Earth had been visited not once, but repeatedly, by different groups over extended periods of time. For researchers working at the facility, according to Lazar, each craft represented a unique puzzle. No 2 vehicles operated according to exactly the same principles, suggesting that alien technology was not uniform but diverse, reflecting different approaches to physics and engineering that human science had yet to comprehend. Whether Lazar's descriptions represent genuine observations or elaborate fiction, they paint a picture of S4 as more than just a storage facility. In his account, it was an active research center where humanity's greatest minds struggled to understand technologies that could revolutionize our understanding of physics, engineering, and our place in the universe. In the next chapter, we examine the most controversial aspect of Lazar's claims, the mysterious element 115 that allegedly powered these impossible machines and opened doorways to technologies beyond human comprehension. Chapter 4: Element 115 and Alien Propulsion. Imagine holding a piece of metal the size of a dinner plate that weighs as much as a car engine, a substance so dense that a small wedge could power a vehicle capable of bending space itself. This is how Bob Lazar described Element 115, the mysterious fuel source he claimed powered the craft at S4. When Lazar first spoke about Element 115 in 1989, he was describing something that didn't officially exist. The periodic table ended at element 109, and anything beyond that was purely theoretical. Scientists knew that heavier elements were possible, but creating them required enormous particle accelerators, and the results lasted only fractions of a second before decaying into lighter elements. Yet, Lazar claimed he had not only seen element 115, but worked with it directly. According to his account, the S4 facility possessed several hundred grams of the material in stable form, stored in special containers designed to shield handlers from its radiation. Unlike the theoretical predictions, this version didn't decay immediately. It maintained its atomic structure indefinitely, defying everything known about super-heavy elements. The element itself, Lazar described, appeared as a dull metallic substance with an unusual orange tint. It was extraordinarily dense, much heavier than gold or platinum, yet could be machined into precise shapes using conventional tools. Small triangular wedges, each weighing several pounds despite their compact size, served as fuel elements for the craft's propulsion systems. But Element 115 wasn't just fuel in the conventional sense. According to Lazar's claims, when placed inside the craft's reactor and bombarded with protons, it would undergo a controlled reaction that produced an entirely different kind of energy. Instead of heat or electromagnetic radiation, the process allegedly generated what Lazar called gravity waves, distortions in space-time itself. This is where the physics becomes extraordinary. Conventional propulsion works by pushing against something: air for aircraft, water for ships, exhaust gases for rockets. But gravity-based propulsion, as Lazar described it, would work by manipulating the fabric of space around the vehicle. The craft wouldn't move through space in the traditional sense. It would bend space to bring its destination closer. The reactor chambers within the craft were surprisingly small, no larger than a softball, according to Lazar's descriptions. Inside these spherical devices, element 115 would be subjected to intense bombardment, creating a field effect that extended beyond the craft itself. This field allegedly allowed the vehicle to cancel out Earth's gravitational pull and create its own directional gravity wells. The implications of such technology would revolutionize not just transportation, but our understanding of physics itself. A craft powered by gravity manipulation could accelerate instantly without subjecting its occupants to crushing forces. It could hover silently, make right-angle turns at high speed, and travel vast distances without carrying massive amounts of fuel. Lazar claimed he witnessed demonstrations of this technology during his time at S4. Small-scale tests, he said, showed objects floating freely within the reactor's field, apparently weightless despite Earth's gravity. Larger tests allegedly involved moving the entire craft, though he claimed never to have seen full-scale flight operations firsthand. The scientific community's reaction to these claims was swift and skeptical. Physicists pointed out that element 115, if it could be created, would be highly unstable. The nuclear forces holding such heavy atoms together would be overwhelmed by electromagnetic repulsion, causing immediate decay. A stable version would require a complete rewriting of nuclear physics. Then, in 2003, something unexpected happened. Russian scientists at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research successfully synthesized element 115 for the first time. They called it moscovium, and it behaved exactly as theoretical physics predicted. It was extremely unstable, lasting only milliseconds before decaying into lighter elements. For believers, this synthesis proved that Lazar had knowledge of elements that didn't officially exist when he first spoke about them. For skeptics, it simply confirmed that his predictions about stable isotopes were wrong. The created element bore no resemblance to the stable, dense material he had described. Yet, questions remain about isotopes and nuclear islands of stability. Some theoretical models suggest that certain configurations of protons and neutrons might create relatively stable super-heavy elements. If such versions exist, they might occur naturally under extreme cosmic conditions, perhaps in the cores of neutron stars or during supernova explosions. The idea that extraterrestrial civilizations might possess stable element 115 is scientifically speculative, but not impossible. Advanced beings with technology far beyond human capability might have discovered methods to create or harvest such materials from environments we can't reach or replicate on Earth. According to Lazar's account, the supply at S4 was limited and irreplaceable. Each gram represented extraordinary value, both scientifically and strategically. The material allegedly came from recovered craft, suggesting that obtaining more would require additional recoveries or perhaps eventually learning to synthesize it using alien methods. The propulsion systems built around element 115 were described as remarkably elegant. No massive engines, no complex fuel delivery systems, no exhaust ports or cooling mechanisms. Just small reactor chambers that could generate fields powerful enough to manipulate the fundamental structure of space-time around the vehicle. But the technology came with limitations. Lazar claimed the gravity generators could only operate in specific modes, creating fields in particular directions and intensities. The craft couldn't simply fly anywhere at will, but followed predetermined patterns based on the reactor's configuration and the local gravitational environment. The reactor systems themselves were allegedly beyond human understanding, built using principles that Earth science hadn't discovered. Attempts to reverse engineer the technology, according to Lazar, had met with limited success. Researchers could observe the effects, but couldn't replicate the underlying mechanisms using human materials and methods. Even more intriguingly, Lazar suggested that element 115 might be just one component of a larger technological framework. The stable isotope might exist naturally in regions of space with different physical conditions, making it readily available to civilizations that developed in those environments while remaining nearly impossible for Earth-based science to produce. Whether element 115 exists in the stable form Lazar described remains one of the most controversial aspects of the S4 story. It represents either a fundamental breakthrough in physics and chemistry or an elaborate fiction built on coincidental knowledge of theoretical science. The mystery deepens when considering that dozens of other alleged UFO encounters have involved craft displaying the same flight characteristics Lazar attributed to gravity-based propulsion. Silent hovering, instant acceleration, right-angle turns at high speed. Either multiple witnesses are describing the same fictional technology, or something with these capabilities is indeed operating in our skies. In the next chapter, we descend deeper into the mountain complex to explore the alleged underground facilities where this revolutionary technology was supposedly studied, tested, and perhaps slowly, carefully reverse-engineered by the brightest minds humanity had to offer. Chapter 5. The Underground Complex. The mountain hangars at S4, according to those who claim knowledge of the facility, were only the beginning. Below the visible chambers, carved deep into the solid rock of the Papoose Range, allegedly lies a sprawling underground complex that makes the surface operations seem simple by comparison. Think of an iceberg. What you see above water represents just a tiny fraction of the mass below. If insider accounts are accurate, S4 follows the same principle. The craft storage areas, impressive as they might be, would serve merely as the uppermost level of a facility that extends hundreds of feet into the mountain's core. The construction of such a complex would represent one of the most ambitious engineering projects ever undertaken. Excavating chambers and corridors from solid volcanic rock would require specialized equipment, enormous amounts of time, and absolute secrecy during the building process. Every ton of removed stone would need to be transported away without detection, every blast carefully muffled to avoid seismic detection. According to theoretical layouts proposed by researchers, the underground levels would be organized by function and security clearance. The first sublevel, directly beneath the craft hangars, would house primary laboratories where recovered technology undergoes initial analysis. Here, according to speculation, teams of specialists would examine hull materials, study propulsion components, and attempt to understand alien engineering principles. Deeper levels would contain increasingly sensitive operations. Climate-controlled storage vaults for materials too dangerous or valuable to keep in surface areas. Clean rooms where microscopic analysis of alien alloys could proceed without contamination. Shielded chambers where radioactive elements, like the alleged element 115, could be handled safely. The deepest levels, if they exist, might house the most extraordinary secrets of all. Some theorists suggest that certain areas could contain biological specimens, either preserved remains from crash sites or, in the most controversial claims, living beings under observation. Such facilities would require medical-grade isolation systems, atmospheric controls, and security protocols that exceed anything used for human subjects. Environmental systems for an underground complex of this scale would be engineering marvels themselves. Fresh air circulation, temperature regulation, humidity control, and waste management would all need to operate flawlessly in sealed chambers carved from solid rock. Emergency systems would require redundant power supplies, independent air sources, and evacuation procedures that account for the facility's buried location. The electrical requirements alone would be staggering. High-powered laboratory equipment, climate control systems, security networks, and lighting for dozens of chambers would demand massive generators or connections to external power grids. Concealing such energy consumption would require careful planning and possibly independent power sources hidden within the mountain itself. According to some accounts, the underground levels are connected by transport systems that allow rapid movement of personnel and materials without surface exposure. Electric carts running on tracks carved into rock corridors would enable researchers to move between levels quickly and quietly. Freight elevators large enough to accommodate substantial equipment could transfer heavy components from surface to storage without risk of detection. Security within the underground complex allegedly surpasses even Area 51's strict protocols. Access to different levels would require separate clearances, with biometric scanners, retinal identification, and possibly even DNA verification for the most sensitive areas. Armed guards stationed at every checkpoint would ensure that personnel remain within their authorized zones at all times. The compartmentalization would be absolute. Workers, on one level, might have no knowledge of what happens on others. Elevator systems could be programmed to prevent unauthorized access, automatically stopping only at floors where an individual's clearance permits entry. Even maintenance staff would be escorted and monitored during their duties. Some researchers speculate that the complex extends far beyond the immediate S4 location, with tunnel networks connecting to other facilities across the Nevada desert. Underground railways or vehicle passages could link S4 to Area 51, allowing secure transport of materials and personnel between sites without surface detection. The construction timeline for such a facility would span decades. Initial excavation might have begun in the 1950s or 60s, with new levels added as needs expanded and technology advanced. The geological requirements would favor locations with stable rock formations, minimal water infiltration, and natural barriers to seismic detection. Ventilation systems would need to handle not just fresh air circulation, but also the removal of potentially hazardous gases or particles from research activities. Specialized filtration might be required to contain unknown substances, while exhaust systems would need to disperse any emissions across wide areas to avoid detection by atmospheric monitoring. Communication within the complex would operate on secure networks completely isolated from external systems. Internal telephone lines, computer networks, and data storage would use encryption methods that prevent any possibility of external interception. Even communication between levels might be restricted, ensuring that sensitive information remains compartmentalized. The psychological impact of working in such an environment would be significant. Personnel might spend entire shifts, hundreds of feet underground, surrounded by solid rock with no natural light or direct connection to the surface world. The facility would need to address issues of isolation, claustrophobia, and the mental stress of working with potentially world-changing secrets. Emergency protocols would be extraordinarily complex. Fire suppression systems would need to operate in enclosed spaces without compromising sensitive equipment or materials. Medical emergencies would require rapid transport to surface facilities while maintaining security protocols. Evacuation procedures would account for the time needed to move personnel through multiple security levels. Some accounts suggest that certain areas of the underground complex operate under international oversight, with representatives from allied nations participating in research programs. If true, this would add additional layers of security and diplomacy to an already complex operation. The power requirements for maintaining such a facility would leave signatures that careful analysis might detect. Unusual electrical consumption patterns, thermal emissions from ventilation systems, or seismic vibrations from heavy equipment could potentially reveal the presence of underground operations to those who know what to look for. Whether S4's alleged underground complex truly exists remains unproven. The engineering challenges would be immense, the security requirements unprecedented, and the cost astronomical. Yet for those who believe alien technology has been recovered and studied, such a facility represents the logical evolution of government secrecy taken to its ultimate extreme. The mountain itself becomes a vault, protecting secrets that could transform human civilization, while ensuring that knowledge remains in the hands of those deemed worthy to possess it. Every level deeper would bring researchers closer to understanding technologies that might redefine the limits of what's possible. In the next chapter, we explore how work within this alleged complex would be organized, examining the compartmentalized research teams whose specialized knowledge might hold pieces of the greatest puzzle in human history. Chapter 6: Compartmentalized Research Teams. Picture a jigsaw puzzle with 10,000 pieces, but each person working on it can see only 5 or 6 fragments at a time. They know their pieces fit together somehow, but they're never allowed to step back and view the complete image. This, according to alleged insiders, is how research operates at S4. The compartmentalization at the facility would make even the most classified military projects seem transparent by comparison. Workers allegedly arrive each morning knowing only their specific assignment for that day. A materials engineer might spend months analyzing a single metal sample without ever learning what vehicle it came from. A propulsion specialist could study energy readings without seeing the craft that generated them. Dr. Eric Davis, a theoretical physicist who claims second-hand knowledge of such operations, has described how teams might be organized around narrow specialties. One group focuses solely on hull composition. Another examines what appear to be control interfaces. A third studies the mysterious power sources. None are told how their work relates to the others, and interaction between teams is strictly forbidden. The psychological pressure of working under such conditions would be immense. Researchers would carry knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of physics, yet they couldn't discuss their discoveries with colleagues, friends, or family. Some alleged former workers described the isolation as nearly unbearable, knowing they were contributing to something monumental while never seeing the bigger picture. According to these accounts, each research team operates in dedicated laboratory spaces designed around their specific needs. The materials analysis group would work in clean rooms with electron microscopes, spectrometers, and testing equipment capable of examining substances at the atomic level. Their samples would arrive in sealed containers with no information about origin or context, just alphanumeric codes for identification. The biological research teams, if such groups exist, would face even stranger challenges. Alleged tissue samples from non-human entities would require entirely new analytical approaches. Standard medical equipment might prove inadequate for studying physiology that operates according to different biological principles. Everything from cell structure to genetic material could follow patterns unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary history. Propulsion system analysts would encounter technologies that violate known physics. According to claims from supposed insiders, instruments designed to measure conventional thrust or electromagnetic fields would produce readings that made no sense, energy outputs that seemed to come from nowhere. Gravitational effects that occurred without corresponding mass, reactions that produced more energy than they consumed. The computer systems group would face their own unique puzzles. If the alleged craft contained computing technology, it might operate according to principles completely foreign to human programming. Binary logic, silicon chips, and electrical circuits could be replaced by systems based on quantum effects, biological processes, or physical phenomena we haven't discovered. Security protocols would ensure that no individual could piece together information from multiple research areas. Computer networks might be completely isolated, preventing any cross-referencing of data between teams. Even the cleaning staff would be compartmentalized, with different personnel assigned to different laboratory areas to prevent casual observation of multiple projects. The psychological profiles of workers selected for such positions would require extraordinary stability. They would need brilliant scientific minds capable of breakthrough research, combined with personalities that could handle extreme secrecy and isolation. Background investigations would be more thorough than those for nuclear weapons programs, examining not just security risks but psychological resilience. Some alleged former workers describe briefings where they were shown only the specific components relevant to their assignment. A metallurgist might see hull samples, but never the complete craft. An electronics specialist could examine control panels removed from their original context. Each expert would develop deep knowledge of their particular area, while remaining ignorant of how it connected to anything else. The work schedules would be carefully managed to prevent overlap between teams. Different groups might use the same laboratory spaces at different times, with thorough cleaning and security sweeps between sessions. Researchers working on related projects might never encounter each other, despite being separated by only hours or single walls. Communication with the outside world would be severely restricted, phone calls monitored, mail inspected, social interactions tracked. Some accounts describe workers being required to live on site for extended periods, completely cut off from external contact. The facility would become their entire world, with recreational areas, sleeping quarters, and dining facilities all contained within the secure perimeter. The knowledge management systems would be designed to prevent any individual from accessing information outside their clearance level. Digital files could be encrypted with keys that work only on specific terminals in designated rooms. Physical documents might be printed with special inks that make photocopying impossible. Even note-taking could be prohibited or strictly controlled. Career advancement within such a system would depend entirely on performance within narrow specializations. A researcher might become the world's leading expert on a particular type of alien alloy without ever knowing what spacecraft it came from. Promotion might mean access to slightly more information, but never the complete picture. The scientific method itself would be challenged by such compartmentalization. Peer review becomes impossible when colleagues can't know what you're working on. Publishing research findings is forbidden when the information is classified beyond conventional levels. The normal process of scientific discovery, through open communication and collaboration, would be replaced by isolated individual effort. Some supposed insiders describe the frustration of making discoveries that could transform human technology while being unable to share or apply that knowledge. Breakthroughs in materials science, energy production, or propulsion systems would remain locked within the facility, their potential benefits to humanity unrealized. The mental health implications would be severe. Researchers might develop symptoms similar to those experienced by long-term prisoners, intelligence operatives, or others who live with profound secrets. Depression, anxiety, and social isolation would be occupational hazards as dangerous as any physical risk from the technology itself. Training programs for new workers would need to address these psychological challenges while preparing them for research that defies conventional understanding. How do you teach someone to study technology that operates outside known physics? How do you prepare minds trained in human science to examine artifacts from non-human intelligence? Quality control in such an environment would be extraordinarily difficult. With no peer review or cross-verification between teams, errors or misinterpretations could persist for years. The normal scientific process of challenge and validation would be replaced by isolated individual judgment, potentially leading to flawed conclusions about revolutionary technology. Yet, according to believers, this system exists because the alternative would be impossible to secure. If researchers could see the complete picture, if they understood the full implications of their work, if they could communicate freely about their discoveries, the secrets would inevitably leak to the outside world. Whether such compartmentalized research teams actually operate at S4 or anywhere else remains unproven, but the concept represents the logical extreme of scientific secrecy, where the pursuit of knowledge becomes prisoner to the need for control. In the next chapter, we follow the alleged journey that brings workers to this hidden world, examining the transport systems and security protocols that would keep even the facility's location secret from those who work there. Chapter 7. The transport from Groom Lake. The journey begins like any other day at Area 51. Workers arrive on the unmarked flights from Las Vegas, their badges checked, their belongings scanned. But for a select few, according to alleged accounts, the routine ends there. Instead of being directed to their usual assignments, they receive different instructions. Report to Building 7. Wait for further orders. What happens next, according to those who claim to have experienced it, is designed to disorient and isolate. The selected personnel are escorted to a secure area where additional security checks take place. Not just the standard badge verification, but biometric scans, retinal identification, and sometimes polygraph examinations administered on the spot. The psychological effect is immediate and intentional. Even workers with the highest clearances at Groom Lake find themselves subjected to scrutiny that suggests they're entering something beyond their usual world. The message is clear: whatever comes next operates under different rules entirely. The buses themselves are unlike any conventional military transport. According to witness accounts, they're modified vehicles with windows that have been completely blacked out from the inside. Not tinted glass that allows some visibility, but solid barriers that prevent passengers from seeing anything of their route. Interior lighting is kept dim, creating an atmosphere of sensory deprivation. Seating arrangements ensure minimal interaction between passengers. Some accounts describe individual seats separated by partitions, preventing workers from even seeing who else is making the journey. Others mention bench seating, where conversation is explicitly forbidden, with armed guards present to enforce the silence. The route from Groom Lake to the alleged S4 location would cover approximately 15 miles of desert terrain. But according to those who claim to have made the trip, the journey feels much longer due to deliberate detours and route changes designed to confuse passengers about their destination. The bus might head north initially, then circle back south, or take indirect paths that make navigation impossible. Multiple stops add to the disorientation. The vehicle might halt for several minutes with no explanation, engines running, while additional security checks are performed outside. Passengers report hearing radio chatter, the sound of other vehicles, and sometimes helicopter rotors overhead, suggesting a coordinated security operation far more complex than a simple bus ride. The road surfaces change throughout the journey, from paved sections near Groom Lake to dirt tracks and what some describe as specially prepared paths that produce minimal dust or tire tracks. The engineering required to create such routes while maintaining secrecy would be substantial, involving careful grading and surface treatments to minimize evidence of regular vehicle traffic. Temperature control within the buses is allegedly precise, kept cool enough to be comfortable, but not so cold as to cause discomfort during what might be an hour-long journey, counting all the stops and detours. The air circulation systems operate quietly, avoiding the noise that might mask important security communications or provide audio cues about the route. Some accounts describe additional security measures during transport. GPS devices, if carried by personnel, might be collected before boarding. Cell phones are already prohibited in such classified areas, but even emergency communication devices issued by the facility could be temporarily confiscated to prevent any possibility of location tracking. The guards accompanying each transport are reportedly drawn from elite security units, not the standard base personnel familiar with routine Groom Lake operations. They're described as professional but intimidating, making it clear through their presence that this journey represents a significant escalation in security protocols. Upon arrival at the alleged S4 location, passengers would face another series of security checks before being allowed to disembark. Some accounts mention waiting periods where the bus remains sealed while external security sweeps are conducted. Others describe intermediate stops at checkpoints where additional identification verification takes place. The return journey allegedly follows similar protocols, but with route variations that prevent workers from learning the path through repetition. Different roads, alternative stops, varied timing, all designed to ensure that even after multiple trips, personnel couldn't navigate to S4 independently or provide useful directions to unauthorized individuals. The psychological impact of this transport system extends beyond simple security. Workers who experienced such journeys describe feeling increasingly isolated from their normal world with each trip. The sensory deprivation, the enforced silence, and the obvious security precautions create a mental separation between their regular duties and whatever awaits at the destination. Some alleged former workers report that the transport experience was intentionally designed to induce a particular psychological state. By the time passengers reach S4, they're mentally prepared for an environment that operates under extraordinary security. The journey itself becomes a form of conditioning, preparing minds for exposure to information that exists outside normal human experience. The scheduling of these transports would require careful coordination with other operations at both facilities. Times would be chosen to minimize observation from satellites, avoid conflicts with aircraft movements, and ensure that the routes remain clear of unauthorized personnel. Weather conditions might also factor into timing, with transports delayed or rescheduled based on visibility and atmospheric conditions. Maintenance of the transport vehicles would require special attention. Regular inspection for tracking devices, swept for electronic surveillance equipment, and maintained by personnel with appropriate clearances. Even the mechanics working on these buses would need to operate under security restrictions that prevent them from learning about routes, schedules, or destinations. The fuel and supply logistics for such operations would leave minimal paper trails. Vehicles might be serviced at dedicated facilities within the restricted area, using fuel and parts that couldn't be traced through normal military supply chains. Every aspect of the operation would be designed to avoid creating records that might reveal the existence of regular transport between Groom Lake and an undisclosed secondary location. Communication during transport would be limited to essential security information. Radio protocols would use code words and encrypted channels to prevent interception. Even routine mechanical issues or schedule changes would be communicated in ways that avoid revealing specific locations or operational details. The human cost of operating under such security would be significant. Drivers, guards, and support personnel would all carry the psychological burden of maintaining absolute secrecy about operations they witness but can never discuss. The stress of handling such sensitive logistics while ensuring perfect operational security would affect everyone involved. Whether such elaborate transport protocols actually exist between Area 51 and an alleged S4 facility remains unverified. But the accounts describe a system designed to maintain secrecy, not just about destinations, but about the very existence of regular movement between classified locations. The journey itself becomes part of the security apparatus, ensuring that even those who make the trip regularly can never fully understand where they've been or how to return independently. In the next chapter, we explore what allegedly happens to the technology once it reaches this hidden destination, examining the reverse engineering programs that might represent humanity's greatest scientific challenge and most closely guarded secret. Chapter 8: Reverse Engineering Programs. Imagine trying to understand a smartphone by examining it with tools from the 1800s. You might recognize that it's made of metal and glass, but the microprocessors, circuit boards, and software would remain completely mysterious. This, according to alleged insiders, captures the challenge facing researchers who claim to study recovered alien technology at S4. The concept of reverse engineering is straightforward when applied to conventional technology. Take apart a device, study its components, understand how they interact, then recreate the functionality using your own materials and methods. But when the technology operates according to principles outside human scientific understanding, that process becomes exponentially more difficult. According to Bob Lazar and others who claim knowledge of such programs, the reverse engineering efforts at S4 have been ongoing for decades with mixed results. Some materials and systems allegedly yielded insights that advanced human technology in subtle ways. Others remained as mysterious after years of study as they were on the day of recovery. The materials analysis teams would face immediate challenges that conventional science couldn't address. Hull samples that appeared metallic but contained no recognizable elements from the periodic table. Structures that seemed solid yet could be compressed to a fraction of their size before returning to original shape without damage. Surfaces that changed properties based on temperature, electromagnetic fields, or even the presence of observers. Testing such materials would require developing entirely new analytical methods. Standard instruments designed to measure hardness, conductivity, or chemical composition might produce meaningless results when applied to substances that don't follow earthly rules. Researchers would need to invent new ways of understanding matter itself. The propulsion systems presented even greater puzzles. According to claims about Element 1, 15 reactors, the devices produced effects that violated fundamental laws of physics as humans understand them. Energy outputs that exceeded inputs, gravitational fields generated without corresponding mass, reactions that seemed to draw power from empty space itself. Attempts to replicate these systems using human technology allegedly met with limited success. Researchers might understand that a particular component generated specific effects, but recreating those effects with earthly materials proved nearly impossible. The alien technology might depend on manufacturing processes, energy sources, or physical conditions that simply don't exist on Earth. Some alleged breakthroughs reportedly came from studying the craft's control interfaces. These systems, according to witness accounts, responded to touch, thought, or bioelectric fields in ways that suggested direct neural interface capability. Human attempts to recreate such technology might have contributed to advances in computer-brain interfaces, though any connection to alien sources would remain deeply classified. The computer systems within recovered craft allegedly operated on principles completely foreign to human programming. Instead of binary logic and silicon processors, the technology might use quantum effects, biological processes, or dimensional properties that Earth science hasn't discovered. Reverse engineering such systems would require fundamental advances in computing theory. Materials science breakthroughs allegedly derived from alien technology might have filtered into civilian applications over decades. Advances in metallurgy, ceramics, and composite materials that seemed to appear suddenly in the 1970s and 80s could theoretically trace back to insights gained from studying recovered craft, though proving such connections would be impossible without access to classified records. The challenges extended beyond individual components to understanding how systems integrated. Alien technology might operate as unified wholes rather than assemblies of separate parts. The distinction between hardware and software, between structure and function, might not apply to engineering principles developed by non-human intelligence. Quality control in reverse engineering programs would be extraordinarily difficult. How do you verify that your recreation of alien technology actually works the same way as the original? Standard testing methods might be inadequate for evaluating systems that operate outside known physics. Success or failure might not be immediately apparent. Some alleged projects reportedly focused on specific applications rather than complete system replication. Instead of trying to build entire alien spacecraft, researchers might concentrate on developing new materials with similar properties or energy systems that produced comparable effects through different means. These targeted approaches might yield practical results, even when complete understanding remained elusive. The timeline for such research would span generations. Technologies that took alien civilizations millennia to develop couldn't be expected to yield their secrets to human analysis within decades. Some theoretical physicists suggest that certain discoveries might require fundamental advances in human scientific understanding before meaningful progress becomes possible. Personnel working on reverse engineering programs would face unique psychological challenges. The frustration of working with technology that consistently defies explanation could lead to burnout, depression, or even psychological breaks from reality. Support systems would need to address the mental health implications of confronting evidence that human science is far more limited than previously believed. Documentation of reverse engineering efforts would create unprecedented classification challenges. How do you write technical reports about technology that operates outside known physics? How do you train new researchers when the foundational principles can't be explained using conventional scientific language? Standard educational approaches might prove inadequate. The economic implications of successful reverse engineering would be staggering. Technologies that could manipulate gravity, generate unlimited energy, or create materials with impossible properties would revolutionize every aspect of human civilization. The decision to keep such capabilities classified rather than releasing them for civilian benefit would represent one of the most significant choices in human history. Some researchers theorize that partial success in reverse engineering might explain certain technological leaps that occurred during the Cold War. Advances in stealth technology, computer miniaturization, and materials science that seem to appear suddenly might have roots in classified programs studying recovered alien technology. The failure rate in such programs would likely be extremely high. For every insight gained, dozens of approaches might prove fruitless. Components that worked perfectly in alien systems might cease functioning when removed from their original context. The integrated nature of advanced technology might make piecemeal analysis impossible. International cooperation in reverse engineering programs could theoretically accelerate progress while sharing the enormous costs and challenges. But the strategic advantages of alien technology would make such cooperation unlikely. Nations might pursue parallel programs while sharing minimal information, duplicating efforts while maintaining competitive advantages. The ethical implications of reverse engineering alien technology raise profound questions about intellectual property, scientific disclosure, and humanity's right to advance using knowledge developed by other civilizations. Whether such technology should remain classified indefinitely or eventually be released for the benefit of all humanity represents a moral dilemma of unprecedented scope. Whether reverse engineering programs actually exist at S4 or any other facility remains unproven. The technical challenges described by alleged insiders may be entirely theoretical, products of imagination rather than genuine scientific obstacles. But the concept illuminates the extraordinary difficulties that would face any attempt to understand technology developed by intelligence far more advanced than our own. If such programs do exist, they represent humanity's most ambitious scientific undertaking, conducted in absolute secrecy, with implications that could transform our understanding of physics, consciousness, and our place in the universe. In the next chapter, we examine the security measures that would protect such revolutionary research, exploring systems that allegedly make Area 51's famous restrictions seem minimal by comparison. Chapter 9: Security Beyond Area 51. If Area 51 represents the pinnacle of military security, then S4, according to those who claim knowledge of it, operates in an entirely different category. The measures allegedly taken to protect this hidden facility would make the famous Nevada test site seem almost accessible by comparison. The security begins before you even reach the facility. According to alleged accounts, the 15-mile journey from Groom Lake involves passing through multiple checkpoints, each more stringent than the last. Armed guards at each stop verify not just identification, but biometric data, recent photographs, and sometimes voice pattern recognition to ensure that the person attempting access matches exactly with authorization records. Biometric security systems at S4 allegedly go far beyond the fingerprint scanners and retinal identification used at conventional classified facilities. Some accounts describe full body scanners that create three-dimensional maps of skeletal structure, identifying individuals by bone density patterns that are impossible to forge. DNA sampling at entry points might verify genetic identity, making impersonation virtually impossible. The physical barriers surrounding the alleged facility would dwarf those protecting Area 51. Instead of simple fencing and warning signs, S4 security might include multiple perimeter rings with different detection systems at each level. Motion sensors buried in the ground could detect footsteps from miles away. Seismic monitors might identify vehicle approaches long before visual contact becomes possible. Underground sensors allegedly form an invisible web around the entire Papoose Lake area, monitoring for any unusual activity. Magnetic detectors could identify metal objects like weapons or recording devices. Chemical sensors might detect explosive residues or other dangerous materials. The mountain itself becomes part of the security apparatus, with monitoring equipment hidden within the rock face. Armed response teams stationed at S4 would reportedly be drawn from the most elite military units, personnel with psychological profiles indicating absolute reliability under extreme circumstances. Unlike the security guards at other facilities, these teams would be authorized to use lethal force without warning against any unauthorized intrusion, reflecting the extraordinary value of what they protect. Communication security allegedly involves multiple layers of encryption and isolation. Radio transmissions would use frequency hopping technology and quantum encryption methods that make interception virtually impossible. Even internal communications within the facility might be compartmentalized, preventing personnel from accessing information outside their clearance level through electronic surveillance. Access control within the facility allegedly operates on principles that exceed even the highest military classifications. Rather than simple clearance levels, personnel would be authorized for specific chambers, specific times, and specific purposes. A researcher cleared to enter Laboratory 3 might be prohibited from accessing Laboratory 4, even if both contain similar equipment and operate at the same classification level. Escort protocols allegedly ensure that no individual ever moves through the facility unaccompanied. Even personnel with the highest clearances would be shadowed by armed guards who monitor their movements, verify their destinations, and ensure they remain within authorized areas. These escorts might change regularly to prevent personal relationships that could compromise security. The most sensitive areas allegedly require multiple person authorization, similar to nuclear weapon systems, where two or more individuals must act simultaneously to access critical materials. Certain chambers might remain sealed unless multiple authorized personnel present their credentials simultaneously, preventing any individual from gaining unauthorized access even with valid clearances. Stories from supposed accidental intrusions illustrate the swift response capabilities allegedly maintained at S4. One account describes a maintenance worker who entered the wrong corridor during routine repairs. Within 30 seconds, armed guards had surrounded him, verified his identity, and escorted him from the area. His work assignment was immediately reassigned, and he never again received clearance for that section of the facility. Another alleged incident involved a researcher who became disoriented after working extended hours and wandered into an unauthorized area. Security personnel reportedly intercepted him before he could observe anything sensitive, but the response included immediate medical evaluation, psychological assessment by reserves, and temporary suspension from all duties pending investigation. Electronic surveillance within S4 allegedly monitors not just movement but behavior patterns, using artificial intelligence systems that can detect unusual activity or psychological states that might indicate security risks. Cameras equipped with facial recognition software might track micro-expressions that suggest deception, stress, or hostile intent. The consequences for security violations allegedly extend far beyond simple termination. Personnel who breach protocols, even accidentally, might face legal action under espionage statutes, permanent monitoring by intelligence agencies, and restrictions on travel or communication that last for decades. The message is clear. Working at S4 means accepting lifetime constraints on personal freedom. Psychological pressure on security personnel would be immense. Guards who protect conventional classified facilities know generally what they're defending. At S4, according to claims, security teams might be protecting technology or information so sensitive that even they aren't told what it island. They must maintain absolute vigilance while remaining ignorant of what makes their duties so critical. Counterintelligence operations allegedly monitor all facility personnel continuously, looking for signs of potential compromise, blackmail, or foreign recruitment. Family members, friends, and associates might be subject to periodic investigation to ensure they don't represent security risks. The isolation extends beyond the workplace to encompass entire lives. Technical security measures allegedly include systems designed to detect and neutralize any recording devices, from conventional cameras to exotic surveillance technologies that might be developed by foreign intelligence services. Electromagnetic pulse generators could disable electronic devices, while acoustic dampening systems might prevent sound-based surveillance methods. The facility's location within solid rock provides natural protection against many forms of surveillance, but additional measures allegedly shield against ground-penetrating radar, seismic monitoring, and other detection methods that might reveal underground activities. The mountain becomes a Faraday cage, blocking electromagnetic signals while concealing thermal signatures. Emergency security protocols allegedly include complete facility lockdown capabilities, sealing all entrances and exits while activating internal life support systems. In extreme situations, the facility might operate independently for extended periods, protecting its contents while security threats are neutralized or eliminated. Personnel assigned to S4 allegedly undergo psychological conditioning designed to reinforce loyalty and discretion. Regular polygraph examinations, psychological evaluations, and loyalty assessments ensure that anyone with access to the facility remains reliable over time. The process might include subtle forms of hypnotic suggestion or pharmaceutical interventions that reinforce security consciousness. Whether such extraordinary security measures actually exist at a facility called S4 remains unproven. The descriptions could represent theoretical exercises in maximum security design rather than actual implementations, but they illustrate the lengths to which any organization would need to go to protect secrets of truly revolutionary significance. The human cost of operating under such security would be enormous. Personnel would sacrifice normal lives, relationships, and freedoms to participate in work that might never be acknowledged publicly. The psychological pressure of maintaining such secrets while living under constant surveillance would affect everyone involved, from the highest-ranking scientists to the most junior security guards. If S4 truly exists with such security measures, it represents more than just a classified facility. It becomes a separate world, isolated from normal human society, where the most profound secrets in human history are protected by measures that transform ordinary people into guardians of the impossible. In the next chapter, we explore the origins of what might be stored within such a fortress, examining the crash sites and recovery operations that could have supplied S4 with its alleged otherworldly inventory. Chapter 10. The Crashed Craft Origins. Every recovered craft allegedly stored at S4 tells a story of disaster. According to those who claim knowledge of the facility's inventory, each vehicle represents a moment when advanced technology met catastrophic failure, creating opportunities for human recovery and study that would otherwise never have existed. The most famous connection traces back to the Roswell incident of 1947. In the standard narrative, rancher Mac Brazel discovered unusual debris scattered across his New Mexico property. Military officials initially described it as a flying disc before quickly changing their explanation to a weather balloon. But in the alternative version embraced by believers, the wreckage represented something far more significant. According to this account, the Roswell crash involved a disc-shaped craft of unknown origin that suffered structural failure during flight. Recovery operations allegedly secured not just debris fragments, but substantial sections of intact hull and propulsion systems. While the most damaged pieces might have gone to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, the largest recoverable components could have been transported to more remote locations for detailed study. The timeline fits the alleged establishment of S4 as a specialized facility. If Roswell truly involved recovered alien technology, the late 1940s would mark the beginning of systematic efforts to understand and reverse engineer such materials. The decade that followed saw massive expansion of classified aerospace programs, some of which might have drawn insights from studying non-human engineering. But Roswell represents just one potential source among many. UFO researchers have documented dozens of alleged crash events spanning from the 1940s through the present day. Each incident could theoretically have contributed to S4's collection, creating an inventory that represents multiple civilizations, time periods, and technological approaches. The Kecksburg incident of 1965 offers another possible origin story. Witnesses in Pennsylvania reported seeing a metallic, acorn-shaped object crash into local woodlands. Military personnel allegedly secured the area quickly, removing the object under heavy security. Unlike Roswell, which involved widespread debris, Kecksburg might have yielded a largely intact vehicle suitable for comprehensive study. Other alleged crashes occurred in even more remote locations, allowing for recovery operations with minimal public awareness. The high desert regions of Nevada, New Mexico, and Arizona provided ideal conditions for such incidents, with vast unpopulated areas where unusual objects could be secured without civilian interference. Each recovery would add to the growing inventory of materials requiring specialized analysis. The pattern of alleged crashes raises questions about why such advanced technology would fail so consistently in Earth's environment. Some researchers theorize that our planet's electromagnetic field, atmospheric composition, or gravitational conditions might interfere with propulsion systems designed for different environments. Others suggest that crashes might be intentional, representing controlled deliveries of technology meant to gradually advance human development. The logistics of crash recovery operations would require extraordinary coordination and resources, specialized transport equipment capable of moving large, delicate objects across difficult terrain, scientific personnel trained to handle unknown materials safely, security teams large enough to establish perimeters around crash sites while maintaining absolute secrecy about their activities. Military units allegedly trained specifically for such operations would operate under classification levels that exceed conventional black projects. Personnel might be selected for psychological profiles, indicating absolute reliability and ability to maintain secrets indefinitely. Training would cover everything from handling radioactive or toxic alien materials to dealing with potentially hostile alien survivors. The geographical distribution of alleged crashes might not be random. Some researchers note that many incidents occurred near military installations, nuclear facilities, or aerospace testing areas. This could suggest either that such sites attracted alien attention, or that advanced surveillance systems at these locations were more likely to detect incoming objects that would otherwise go unnoticed. International incidents could complicate recovery operations significantly. Alleged crashes in other countries might require diplomatic negotiations, joint recovery efforts, or covert operations to secure materials before foreign governments could study them. The competition for alien technology could drive intelligence operations as sensitive as nuclear weapons programs. The condition of recovered materials would vary dramatically between incidents. Some crashes might yield only fragments and debris, useful for materials analysis, but providing limited insight into complete systems. Others could preserve intact propulsion units, control systems, or even entire vehicles, offering comprehensive opportunities for reverse engineering. Documentation of each recovery would create archives that span decades of incidents, investigations, and analysis. Files connecting specific crashes to particular pieces of technology stored at S4 would represent some of the most classified information in human history. The ability to trace individual components back to their recovery locations could provide insights into patterns of visitation or technological evolution. The human witnesses to alleged crashes often report similar details across different times and locations. Disc-shaped or triangular craft, metallic hulls with no visible seams, silent operation before impact, and unusual debris that feels weightless yet seems indestructible. The consistency of these accounts either suggests elaborate coordination in fictional storytelling or genuine observations of similar technology. Some alleged crashes reportedly involved living beings, adding biological specimens to the materials recovered for study at S4. Such incidents would require medical facilities, containment protocols, and research programs that go far beyond simple technology analysis. The implications of recovering non-human intelligence would transform crash recovery from materials gathering to first contact situations. The secrecy surrounding alleged crash recoveries would extend to all personnel involved, from first responders who secured crash sites to scientists who spent decades studying the materials. Entire careers might be devoted to understanding artifacts from single incidents, with researchers never learning how their work connects to the broader picture of multiple recoveries across time. Weather and environmental factors could influence both the occurrence and discovery of alleged crashes. Desert regions offer excellent preservation conditions for metallic debris, but also provide natural concealment for recovery operations. Mountain areas might hide crash sites for years before discovery, while coastal regions could result in materials being lost to ocean depths. The technological diversity among alleged recovered craft suggests multiple sources rather than a single civilization or time period. Different hull materials, propulsion methods, and design philosophies might indicate that Earth has been visited repeatedly by various groups, each contributing to S4's collection through unfortunate accidents or intentional crashes. Whether any of these alleged crashes actually occurred remains unproven. The incidents could represent misidentified conventional aircraft, natural phenomena, or entirely fictional events created to explain the presence of advanced human technology that cannot be publicly acknowledged. But the stories persist because they offer logical explanations for how extraordinary materials might have been acquired. If S4 truly houses recovered alien technology, each piece represents not just scientific opportunity, but historical tragedy. Vehicles that crossed interstellar distances only to fail in Earth's skies. Beings who survived journeys beyond human comprehension only to perish in crashes on an alien world. The facility becomes more than a laboratory. It becomes a monument to accidents that changed the course of human development. The next chapter explores what happens when this allegedly recovered technology takes to the skies above Nevada, examining the test flights that might reveal S4's secrets to the few observers positioned to witness them from the desert's edge. Chapter 11: Test Flights and Observations. The most carefully guarded secret at S4 might not be what's stored in the mountain hangars, but what happens when those craft take to the air. According to alleged accounts, the facility's most sensitive operations occur not underground, but in the Nevada skies during the darkest hours of night. Test flights of recovered alien technology would require coordination that exceeds even the most classified military operations. The airspace above both S4 and Area 51 would need to be completely clear of conventional aircraft, satellites, and any possibility of observation from unauthorized sources. Weather conditions would be monitored constantly, with flights delayed or cancelled if atmospheric conditions might affect visibility or detection. According to Bob Lazar and others who claim inside knowledge, he witnessed several test flights during his alleged time at the facility. These weren't full operational flights, but carefully controlled demonstrations designed to evaluate specific capabilities of the craft under study. The vehicles would rise slowly from concealed launch areas, hover briefly, then perform limited maneuvers before returning to secure storage. The timing of such operations would be planned months in advance. Satellite tracking systems would identify windows when no reconnaissance assets would pass over the test area. Weather forecasting would predict optimal conditions for both flight operations and concealment from ground-based observers. Even the phase of the moon might factor into scheduling, with the darkest nights providing maximum concealment. Launch procedures allegedly differ dramatically from conventional aircraft operations. Instead of runways, the craft would emerge from underground chambers through openings concealed within the mountain face. Elevators large enough to accommodate 30-foot diameter vehicles would lift the craft from storage levels to surface launch positions in complete darkness. The coordination between S4 and Area 51 during test operations would be extraordinarily complex. Air traffic control systems would need to track unconventional vehicles that might not appear on standard radar. Communication protocols would use encrypted channels and code words that reveal nothing about the nature of the aircraft being monitored. Emergency procedures would account for craft that operate according to unknown principles. Ground support teams allegedly position themselves at predetermined locations throughout the test range, equipped with specialized monitoring equipment designed to track vehicles that conventional radar might miss. These teams would communicate using frequency-hopping radios and quantum-encrypted channels that make interception virtually impossible. Their observations would feed into central command systems that coordinate every aspect of the flight. The flight characteristics allegedly displayed during these tests would defy conventional aviation principles. Silent hovering at various altitudes, instant acceleration without visible thrust, right-angle turns at speeds that would destroy conventional aircraft. Each maneuver would be carefully documented by multiple monitoring systems, creating comprehensive records of capabilities that exist nowhere else in human technology. Some alleged test flights involve multiple craft operating simultaneously, allowing researchers to observe formation flying, communication between vehicles, or coordinated maneuvers that might provide insights into alien tactical capabilities. These multi-vehicle operations would require even greater security and coordination, with each craft monitored independently while their interactions are studied collectively. The duration of test flights would be severely limited by security considerations. Extended operations increase the risk of detection by foreign surveillance systems, civilian observers, or unexpected technical failures that might result in crashes outside secure areas. Most alleged flights last only minutes, just long enough to evaluate specific systems or capabilities. Recovery procedures after each flight would be as carefully orchestrated as the launch operations. Craft would return to designated landing areas where they could be quickly secured and returned to underground storage. Decontamination procedures might be required if the vehicles generate unusual radiation or electromagnetic effects during operation. Every surface exposed during flight would be examined for evidence of atmospheric interaction or system stress. The human observers positioned outside the restricted area occasionally catch glimpses of these alleged operations. From ridges 20 miles away, witnesses report seeing lights that move unlike any conventional aircraft. Silent orbs that hover motionless before accelerating straight upward. Formations of glowing objects that maintain perfect geometric patterns while performing impossible maneuvers. One account from the late 1980s describes a group of researchers who positioned themselves on public land with high-powered night vision equipment. They observed what appeared to be a bright disk rising slowly from the direction of Papoose Lake. The object hovered for approximately 10 minutes, occasionally moving in sharp angular patterns before descending back toward the mountains and disappearing from view. Another sighting allegedly occurred during the early 1990s when a civilian pilot flying near the restricted airspace reported seeing a triangular formation of lights below his aircraft. The objects maintained perfect spacing while executing turns that would be impossible for conventional planes. When he radioed air traffic control, he was told that no aircraft were authorized in that area and advised to avoid further observation. The psychological impact on test pilots if any human pilots are involved in these operations, would be extraordinary. Flying vehicles that operate according to unknown principles, with propulsion systems that generate no noise or visible exhaust, would challenge every aspect of conventional aviation training. The G-forces associated with rapid acceleration and directional changes might require specially trained personnel or possibly remote operation systems. Documentation of test flights would create some of the most classified records in human history. Video footage, telemetry data, and pilot reports describing the performance of recovered alien technology would be stored under security classifications that exceed nuclear weapon information. Access to such materials would be limited to perhaps dozens of individuals worldwide. The maintenance requirements for craft after test flights might involve procedures unknown to human technology. Alien materials could require specific environmental conditions, unusual cleaning procedures, or inspection methods that detect stress patterns invisible to conventional analysis. Ground crews would need specialized training to service vehicles they don't fully understand. Weather monitoring during test operations would extend far beyond standard meteorological concerns. Atmospheric conditions might affect how alien propulsion systems interact with Earth's environment. Solar activity, electromagnetic fields, and even gravitational variations could influence flight characteristics in ways that human science doesn't yet comprehend. Emergency protocols for test flights would need to account for scenarios that don't exist in conventional aviation. What happens if a craft using gravity-based propulsion experiences system failure at altitude? How do you recover a vehicle that might crash with technologies that pose unknown environmental or health risks? Search and rescue operations would require specialized equipment and personnel trained for extraordinary circumstances. The data collected during each test flight would feed into research programs attempting to understand and replicate alien technology. Every maneuver, every system activation, every measurable parameter would be analyzed for insights that might advance human scientific understanding. The flights become active experiments in physics and engineering conducted with equipment beyond human capability. International monitoring systems might occasionally detect unusual activity over Nevada, but the remote location and sophisticated countermeasures would make verification nearly impossible. Foreign intelligence agencies might suspect that advanced technology is being tested, but proving the alien origin of such systems would require evidence that remains locked within the most secure facilities on Earth. Whether test flights of recovered alien technology actually occur above S4 and the surrounding Nevada desert remains unverified. The accounts could represent misidentified conventional aircraft, atmospheric phenomena, or elaborate cover stories for entirely human advanced technology programs. But the consistency of witness reports and the logical necessity of testing any recovered systems keeps the possibility alive in the minds of believers. If such flights do occur, they represent moments when humanity's greatest secrets briefly take wing above the desert, visible for just minutes to the few observers positioned to witness them before disappearing back into the mountain vaults, where they wait for the next carefully planned emergence into Nevada's empty skies. In the next chapter, we examine how such extraordinary operations remain invisible to the most sophisticated surveillance systems on Earth, exploring the engineering and planning required to hide revolutionary technology from satellites, radar, and prying eyes. Chapter 12. The Satellite Invisibility. In an age when commercial satellites can photograph license plates from orbit and military reconnaissance systems can detect underground facilities through minute temperature variations, The complete absence of photographic evidence for S4 represents either proof that it doesn't exist or demonstration of concealment techniques that exceed anything known to public science. Modern surveillance satellites orbit Earth approximately every 90 minutes, capturing images with resolutions measured in inches rather than feet. The most advanced systems can detect objects as small as individual vehicles, monitor heat signatures through multiple layers of material, and track changes in ground elevation that might indicate underground construction. For a facility the size that S4 would need to be, remaining invisible to such systems would require engineering approaches that border on the impossible. The first challenge would be thermal concealment. Any underground facility housing active research programs would generate heat signatures from lighting, climate control, computer systems, and human activity. This excess heat must go somewhere, and conventional exhaust systems would create detectable thermal plumes visible to infrared satellites. Alleged accounts suggest that S4's thermal management involves distributing heat across vast underground networks, dissipating excess energy through rock formations over areas spanning multiple square miles. Ground-penetrating radar satellites present another detection challenge. These systems can identify underground structures by measuring how radio waves reflect off buried objects. Solid rock produces different signatures than hollow chambers, and excavated spaces filled with equipment would create distinctive patterns recognizable to trained analysts. The alleged S4 facility would need shielding techniques that make underground chambers appear identical to solid mountain from radio wave perspective. The construction phase of any such facility would be virtually impossible to conceal from persistent satellite surveillance. Thousands of tons of rock would need to be excavated and transported away without leaving visible evidence. Heavy equipment, supply convoys, and worker housing would create activity signatures that intelligence analysts train specifically to detect. The alleged construction of S4 would have required either techniques for invisible excavation or completion during an era when satellite coverage was less comprehensive. Electromagnetic shielding presents additional complexity. Research activities involving advanced technology would likely generate unusual electromagnetic signatures detectable by specialized reconnaissance satellites. Radio emissions, power fluctuations, and experimental equipment could all produce detectable signals unless completely contained within carefully designed Faraday cage structures built into the mountain itself. The visual concealment of surface features would require extraordinary attention to detail. Hangar doors built into mountain faces would need to match the surrounding rock so precisely that even high-resolution photography couldn't detect the differences. Materials would need to weather naturally, accumulating dust and discoloration that matches the surrounding environment. The engineering tolerances would be measured in fractions of inches across surfaces spanning hundreds of feet. Camouflage netting and artificial surface treatments used by conventional military installations would be inadequate for concealment from modern satellite systems. Advanced reconnaissance satellites can detect artificial materials through spectral analysis, identifying man-made objects by how they reflect different wavelengths of light. Natural rock formations have distinctive spectral signatures that would be extremely difficult to replicate using conventional camouflage techniques. The absence of access roads presents one of the most compelling arguments for S4's non-existence. Any facility requiring regular supply deliveries and personnel transport would need vehicle access that would be clearly visible from orbit. Even underground facilities require surface connections for ventilation, power, and emergency access. The complete lack of visible infrastructure around Papoose Lake suggests either that no facility exists there or that access methods exist beyond conventional understanding. Ground disturbance from construction activities leaves signatures that persist for decades. Soil compaction patterns, vegetation disruption, and subtle elevation changes from excavated material would remain detectable long after construction completion. Intelligence analysts routinely identify construction projects years after completion by examining these persistent ground signatures in satellite imagery. The seasonal monitoring capabilities of modern satellites make concealment even more challenging. Images taken during different weather conditions, seasons, and times of day can reveal details invisible in single photographs. Snow cover might highlight warm areas around facility entrances. Spring vegetation might grow differently over disturbed soil. Summer heat could reveal thermal signatures invisible during cooler periods. Some researchers theorize that S4's concealment might involve active countermeasures rather than passive camouflage. Theoretical technologies could include holographic projectors that make facility entrances appear as solid rock, or electromagnetic systems that interfere with satellite sensors when they pass over sensitive areas. Such technologies would represent advances in stealth and concealment far beyond anything acknowledged publicly. The coordination required to avoid all satellite surveillance would be extraordinarily complex. Military and intelligence agencies track hundreds of reconnaissance satellites from multiple nations, predicting their orbital paths and imaging capabilities. Any surface activity at S4 would need to be scheduled during the brief windows when no surveillance systems could observe the area, requiring precise timing and constant monitoring of orbital mechanics. Underground construction techniques that leave no surface traces would challenge conventional engineering approaches. Excavated material would need to be processed and disposed of without transportation to surface locations. Ventilation systems would require concealment methods that prevent detection of airflow patterns. Power systems would need shielding that eliminates electromagnetic emissions detectable from orbit. The emergence of commercial satellite services with high-resolution imaging capabilities has made concealment even more difficult. Private companies now operate satellites with capabilities that rival military systems, and their images are available for purchase or analysis by researchers worldwide. Any facility trying to remain concealed must now evade both military and commercial surveillance systems operating continuously. Some alleged insider accounts suggest that certain satellite images of the Papoose Lake area show subtle anomalies that could indicate concealed structures. Slight color variations in rock faces, unusual shadow patterns, or geometric regularities that seem out of place in natural formations. However, these potential indicators remain ambiguous enough that they could represent natural geological features or image processing artifacts. The psychological impact of perfect concealment would affect personnel working at such a facility. Knowing that their workplace is completely invisible to the outside world would reinforce the sense of operating in a separate reality. The engineering required to achieve such invisibility would demonstrate technological capabilities that exceed public understanding, adding to the mystique of working with potentially alien technology. Counterintelligence operations might deliberately release false satellite images or manipulated data to obscure the true appearance of sensitive areas. If S4 exists, intelligence agencies might ensure that publicly available satellite imagery of Papoose Lake shows only natural rock formations, even if the actual terrain contains concealed structures. The absence of photographic evidence could also result from classification of relevant satellite imagery. Military reconnaissance systems might routinely photograph areas around Papoose Lake, but those images could remain classified indefinitely to prevent confirmation or denial of facility rumors. The lack of public evidence might reflect information control rather than facility non-existence. Whether S4 truly achieves satellite invisibility through advanced engineering or simply doesn't exist remains one of the mystery's most compelling aspects. The complete absence of definitive photographic evidence, despite decades of satellite surveillance and public interest, suggests either extraordinarily sophisticated concealment techniques or confirmation that the entire story represents elaborate fiction. The truth remains hidden, whether in mountain chambers invisible to orbiting eyes or in the realm of imagination, where the impossible seems tantalizingly real. In the next chapter, we examine how official denials and disinformation campaigns might serve to protect such extraordinary secrets, exploring the techniques used to obscure truth while maintaining plausible explanations for the unexplainable. Chapter 13: Government Denials and Disinformation. The official position of the United States government on S4 has remained consistent for over 3 decades. No such facility exists. When pressed for details about Bob Lazar's claims or allegations of alien technology storage at Papoose Lake, military and intelligence officials respond with polite but firm denials, often accompanied by suggestions that witnesses may have misidentified conventional aircraft or misunderstood classified but entirely human technology programs. This approach represents more than simple secrecy. It demonstrates sophisticated information management designed to protect genuine classified activities while managing public curiosity about unexplained phenomena. Whether S4 houses alien technology or serves as cover for advanced human programs, the techniques used to obscure its existence offer insights into how modern governments handle their most sensitive secrets. The denial strategy operates on multiple levels simultaneously. At the surface, officials maintain that no facility called S4 exists anywhere in Nevada or elsewhere. This blanket denial prevents reporters and researchers from asking specific questions about operations, personnel, or capabilities. Without acknowledging the facility's existence, authorities can avoid discussing what might be happening there. Deeper investigation reveals more nuanced responses that neither confirm nor deny specific activities while redirecting attention toward acknowledged programs. When questioned about unusual aircraft sightings near Papoose Lake, military spokesmen might reference known testing of experimental drones or stealth aircraft at nearby ranges. The implication is that witnesses are observing conventional technology, not alien craft. The timing of certain disclosures seems designed to provide alternative explanations for S4-related claims. The public revelation of stealth aircraft programs in the 1980s and 90s offered convenient explanations for unusual sightings that had previously fueled UFO speculation. Advanced drones revealed in recent years provide similar cover for more recent observations of unconventional aircraft behavior. Disinformation campaigns might deliberately spread false information to confuse researchers and discredit genuine whistleblowers. Intelligence agencies have documented histories of releasing fabricated UFO stories to conceal classified military projects. If S4 exists, some of the most exotic claims about its contents might be deliberately planted fiction designed to make the entire subject seem too fantastic for serious investigation. The compartmentalization of information serves disinformation purposes as well as security ones. By ensuring that even legitimate insiders know only fragments of larger programs, authorities can more easily discredit anyone who comes forward with partial information. Whistleblowers, like Bob Lazar, can be dismissed as having misunderstood their limited access to small pieces of larger, entirely conventional projects. Career destruction represents another tool for managing potential leaks. Individuals who claim knowledge of S4 often find their professional credentials questioned, their employment histories disputed, and their personal lives subjected to scrutiny that discourages others from speaking out. Whether these attacks target genuine whistleblowers or elaborate hoaxers, the effect is to create powerful disincentives for anyone considering public disclosure. The use of plausible alternative explanations allows authorities to acknowledge unusual phenomena while directing attention away from the most sensitive possibilities. Atmospheric effects, ball lightning, temperature inversions, and optical illusions provide scientifically credible explanations for many strange sightings. Witnesses who report impossible maneuvers or silent aircraft can be educated about natural phenomena that might account for their observations. Media management plays a crucial role in shaping public perception of S4 claims. Journalists investigating the story often find themselves directed toward conventional explanations or provided with access to acknowledged programs that seem to explain the mystery. The few reporters who persist in pursuing more exotic possibilities may find their sources drying up or their questions meeting increasingly sophisticated deflection. The scientific community's skepticism provides natural reinforcement for official denials. Mainstream physicists and engineers can be counted on to point out the impossibility of the technologies allegedly studied at S4. Element 1. 15 propulsion systems, gravity manipulation, and materials with impossible properties all violate known scientific principles, making it easy for authorities to dismiss such claims as scientifically illiterate fantasy. International cooperation in denial strategies might extend beyond simple information sharing. Allied governments could coordinate responses to S4-related inquiries, ensuring that foreign researchers encounter similar denials and alternative explanations regardless of which nation they contact. This unified approach would prevent investigators from gaining leverage by playing different governments against each other. The psychological warfare aspect of disinformation campaigns can be particularly effective against UFO researchers. By mixing genuine leaked information with elaborate fiction, intelligence agencies can create environments where truth becomes impossible to distinguish from fabrication. Researchers spend years pursuing leads that were deliberately planted to waste their time and discredit their methods. Economic incentives might support disinformation efforts as well. The UFO research community includes individuals motivated more by profit than truth, creating opportunities for intelligence agencies to pay for the spread of false information. Books, documentaries, and conferences based on fabricated S4 stories could serve government interests while enriching their creators. The evolution of denial strategies reflects changing technology and public awareness. Claims that might have been dismissed as impossible in the 1980s must be addressed more carefully in an era when advanced materials, artificial intelligence, and quantum physics regularly produce seemingly magical capabilities. Modern denials require more sophisticated explanations that account for rapid technological progress. Legal strategies provide additional tools for managing S4-related disclosures. Individuals with legitimate security clearances can be prosecuted for revealing classified information, while those without clearances can be dismissed as fabricators. The legal framework creates powerful incentives for silence, while providing mechanisms for discrediting anyone who does speak out. The overlap between genuine advanced technology and alleged alien artifacts creates perfect conditions for misdirection. Human technological achievements that must remain classified for national security reasons can be explained away as misidentified UFO phenomena. Conversely, genuine unexplained phenomena can be dismissed as misunderstood human technology. Some researchers argue that the S4 story itself serves as the ultimate disinformation campaign. By creating an elaborate fictional facility that captures public imagination, intelligence agencies might deflect attention from real classified activities occurring elsewhere. The search for alien technology at Papoose Lake could distract researchers from discovering genuinely sensitive human programs at other locations. The persistence of S4 claims, despite official denials, might actually serve government interests. As long as the story remains unproven but compelling, it provides a perfect vehicle for explaining away any unusual activity in the Nevada desert. Strange lights, unusual aircraft, and suspicious ground activity can all be attributed to the legendary alien research facility that officially doesn't exist. Counterintelligence operations might actively promote certain aspects of the S4 legend while suppressing others. Elements that make the story seem fictional could be emphasized, while details that might lead to actual classified facilities could be systematically obscured. The goal would be to maintain the mystery while ensuring that real secrets remain protected. The social dynamics of conspiracy theories provide natural insulation for official denial strategies. The more enthusiastically believers embrace S4 stories, the easier it becomes for authorities to dismiss the entire subject as the realm of conspiracy theorists and science fiction enthusiasts. Mainstream audiences learn to associate such claims with fringe thinking, reducing the likelihood of serious investigation. Whether S4 houses alien technology, serves as cover for advanced human programs, or exists only in the realm of elaborate fiction, the government's response demonstrates sophisticated understanding of information warfare. The techniques used to manage public perception of this alleged facility provide templates for protecting any secret that must remain hidden while maintaining democratic society's expectations of governmental accountability. The ultimate success of these denial strategies may be that 3 decades after Bob Lazar first described S4, the facility remains as mysterious as ever. No definitive proof has emerged either for its existence or its non-existence, leaving the public to choose between official denials and unverified claims from alleged insiders who may be genuine whistleblowers, elaborate hoaxers, or unwitting participants in the most sophisticated disinformation campaign ever conducted. In the next chapter, we examine the modern efforts to locate and verify S4's existence, exploring how contemporary technology and investigative techniques might finally pierce the veil of secrecy surrounding one of the most persistent mysteries in UFO lore. Chapter 14: Modern Investigations and Evidence. The search for S4 has entered a new phase in the 21st century, driven by advanced technology that makes comprehensive investigation possible in ways unimaginable when Bob Lazar first described the facility. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic analysis, thermal imaging, and satellite surveillance now offer unprecedented capabilities for detecting hidden structures, yet the alleged facility remains as elusive as ever. Dr. Jeremy Corbell, a documentary filmmaker and UFO researcher, has conducted multiple expeditions to the Papoose Lake area using equipment that can detect underground anomalies through solid rock. His team's ground-penetrating radar surveys in 2018 and 2019 mapped subsurface geology across thousands of square meters, searching for the hollow chambers and artificial structures that would indicate hidden hangars. The radar studies revealed natural cave systems and geological formations consistent with volcanic mountain ranges, but no obvious evidence of large-scale excavation or artificial chambers. However, supporters argue that any facility built with the security requirements alleged for S4 would likely include radar shielding specifically designed to prevent such detection. Geological surveys conducted by independent researchers have focused on identifying signs of large-scale earth movement that would be necessary for underground construction. Analyzing soil composition, rock displacement patterns, and elevation changes that might indicate excavated material being redistributed across the landscape. These studies require comparing historical geological data with current conditions to detect changes that occurred during alleged construction periods. The challenge is that natural geological processes in tectonically active regions can create changes similar to those that might result from human excavation. Earthquake activity, volcanic subsidence, and erosion patterns all leave signatures that could mask evidence of artificial construction or create false positives that appear to indicate human activity where none occurred. Thermal imaging technology has advanced dramatically since the 1980s, now capable of detecting temperature variations as small as fractions of degrees across vast areas. Researchers have used helicopters and drones equipped with advanced infrared sensors to map thermal patterns around Papoose Lake, searching for the heat signatures that would indicate underground activity. The results show thermal variations consistent with natural geological processes, including areas where rock formations absorb and radiate solar heat at different rates, and locations where underground water or mineral deposits affect surface temperatures. No thermal anomalies clearly indicate artificial heating or cooling systems operating beneath the surface. Seismic monitoring represents another approach to detecting hidden facilities. Underground chambers, equipment operation, and human activity all generate vibrations that can be detected by sensitive instruments positioned around the target area. Several research teams have deployed seismic arrays near Papoose Lake, monitoring for vibration patterns that might indicate machinery, construction, or other artificial activity. The seismic data collected over multiple years shows patterns consistent with natural geological activity in the region, including minor earthquake swarms and thermal expansion effects in rock formations. No clear evidence has emerged of artificial vibrations that would indicate hidden facility operations, though supporters note that any advanced facility would likely incorporate vibration dampening systems. Electromagnetic surveys attempt to detect the power systems and electronic equipment that would be necessary for any large underground facility. Using sensitive magnetometers and radio frequency analyzers, researchers have mapped electromagnetic fields around Papoose Lake, searching for signatures of generators, computer systems, or other electrical installations. These studies reveal electromagnetic patterns typical of remote desert regions, with minimal artificial signals beyond occasional aircraft communications and distant radio transmissions. The absence of significant electromagnetic activity could indicate either that no facility exists or that any existing installation uses advanced shielding to contain its electronic signatures. Drone surveillance has revolutionized the ability to observe remote areas continuously over extended periods. Equipped with high-resolution cameras, thermal sensors, and electromagnetic detection equipment, unmanned aircraft can monitor large areas for signs of activity that might indicate hidden facility operations. Multiple drone surveys conducted between 2015 and 2023 have documented normal desert wildlife patterns, occasional military aircraft overflights, and natural weather phenomena. No evidence has been captured of unusual ground activity, concealed entrances opening, or other signs that might indicate facility access operations. Satellite imagery analysis has become more accessible to civilian researchers as commercial high-resolution satellite services have become available. Multiple research teams have purchased and analyzed satellite photographs of Papoose Lake spanning several decades, searching for changes that might indicate construction or facility operations. These analyses reveal natural erosion patterns, seasonal vegetation changes, and occasional vehicle tracks from military patrols or civilian recreation. No definitive evidence has been identified of facility construction, though some researchers claim to have detected subtle anomalies that could represent concealed structures. Ground-based investigation teams have attempted to approach the Papoose Lake area on foot, using hiking routes that remain on public land, while bringing them as close as possible to alleged facility locations. These expeditions aim to detect signs invisible from distance, including unusual electromagnetic fields, sound patterns, or visual anomalies. Security response to these ground approaches has been swift and comprehensive. Military personnel and armed contractors typically intercept hiking teams long before they reach sensitive areas, escorting them from the region while maintaining that they are protecting classified but conventional military testing operations. Metal detection surveys have attempted to locate buried infrastructure that might indicate facility support systems. Power lines, communication cables, water pipes, or ventilation systems would likely extend beyond the immediate facility area, potentially creating detectable signatures in areas accessible to researchers. These surveys have identified scattered metal debris consistent with decades of military testing operations, including fragments from conventional weapons testing and crashed aircraft. No evidence has been discovered of large-scale infrastructure installation that would support major underground facilities. Archaeological techniques, adapted for modern investigation, have been applied to the search for S4. Ground disturbed by construction leaves signatures detectable for decades through soil analysis, vegetation patterns, and subtle elevation changes. Teams trained in archaeological survey methods have examined accessible areas around Papoose Lake for signs of large-scale ground disturbance. The results indicate natural geological processes and limited human activity, consistent with military patrols and occasional recreational use. No evidence has been identified of the extensive ground disturbance that would be necessary for major underground construction projects. Crowdsourced investigation efforts have emerged through online communities dedicated to S4 research. These projects coordinate multiple researchers using standardized methods to collect data across wide areas, sharing results through secure networks to build comprehensive databases of evidence. These collaborative efforts have generated extensive documentation of the Papoose Lake region's geology, weather patterns, wildlife, and human activity. While providing valuable baseline data for future research, they have not uncovered definitive evidence of hidden facilities. The investigation efforts have been complicated by the remote location's harsh environment and security restrictions. Desert conditions that include extreme temperatures, dangerous wildlife, and treacherous terrain limit the time researchers can spend in the field. Security responses that include detention, equipment confiscation, and legal threats discourage many potential investigators. Legal challenges to investigation efforts have focused on establishing public access rights to areas adjacent to classified military ranges. Environmental groups and transparency advocates have filed lawsuits seeking to clarify which areas can be legally accessed by researchers, though these efforts have met with limited success. The cumulative result of decades of modern investigation is an absence of definitive evidence for S4's existence, though researchers disagree about what this absence means. Skeptics argue that comprehensive surveys using advanced technology have failed to find the facility because it does not exist. Believers counter that the investigation techniques used might be inadequate to detect facilities built with advanced concealment technology. The technological limitations of current investigation methods provide some support for both interpretations. If S4 were built using technology decades ahead of public knowledge, conventional detection methods might be insufficient to penetrate concealment systems designed to defeat such analysis. Alternatively, the absence of evidence despite comprehensive searching might simply confirm that no facility exists at the alleged location. Whether modern investigation techniques will eventually provide definitive answers about S4 remains uncertain. Technology continues advancing, offering new possibilities for detection and analysis. The facility's supporters maintain that eventual breakthrough discoveries will vindicate their beliefs, while skeptics argue that continued negative results strengthen the case for the facility's non-existence. The search continues, driven by human curiosity about one of the most persistent mysteries in modern UFO lore and supported by technologies that grow more powerful each year. Whether S4 exists hidden beneath Papoose Lake or lives only in the realm of imagination, the ongoing efforts to find it represent humanity's determination to answer questions that challenge our understanding of what might be possible. In our final chapter, we explore what S4 might mean for humanity's future, examining the implications, if such a facility truly exists, and what its continued secrecy might say about our readiness to confront truths that could transform our understanding of our place in the universe. Chapter 15: The Deepest Secret. If S4 truly exists beneath the Nevada desert, housing recovered alien technology and the systematic efforts to understand it, then humanity stands at a crossroads unlike any in our history. The implications extend far beyond questions of advanced propulsion or exotic materials. They touch the very foundations of how we understand our place in the universe and our future as a species. The technological implications alone would be staggering. Gravity manipulation systems, if they truly operate as Bob Lazar described, would revolutionize not just transportation, but our understanding of physics itself. Energy generation that exceeds input, materials with impossible properties, and information processing that operates beyond binary logic would render much of current science obsolete while opening possibilities we can barely imagine. But the existence of such technology raises profound questions about the timing and manner of its release to humanity. If stable element 115 can power craft that manipulates space-time, why does our civilization still depend on fossil fuels and chemical rockets? If materials exist that are virtually indestructible yet lighter than conventional metals, why hasn't this knowledge transformed manufacturing and construction? The answer, according to believers, lies in the unprecedented nature of the secret itself. Revealing alien technology would fundamentally alter human civilization in ways that might be impossible to control. Economic systems built around scarcity of energy and materials would collapse overnight. Religious and philosophical frameworks that assume humanity's uniqueness in the universe would face profound challenges. Political structures based on national competition for resources would lose much of their meaning. The social implications of disclosure would ripple through every aspect of human culture. Educational systems would need complete restructuring to incorporate new understanding of physics and engineering. Scientific institutions would face crises of authority as fundamental assumptions proved incorrect. The psychological impact on individuals who discover that human knowledge represents only a fraction of what's possible could be devastating. Yet the continued secrecy carries its own costs and moral implications. If technologies exist that could end energy poverty, eliminate pollution, and open space exploration to routine human activity, keeping them hidden represents a choice to allow suffering that could be prevented. Every person who dies from air pollution, every community displaced by climate change, every limitation imposed by current technology becomes a moral question about the ethics of secrecy. The strategic considerations that might justify such secrecy center on questions of readiness and responsibility. Those who allegedly control these secrets might argue that humanity lacks the wisdom to use such powerful technologies safely. Nuclear weapons demonstrate how advanced physics can create existential threats. Technologies that manipulate gravity and space-time could pose dangers we can't even comprehend. International security concerns add another layer of complexity. If such technologies were released, which nations would gain access first? How would global power balances shift if some countries could build gravity-powered aircraft while others remain dependent on conventional propulsion? The potential for conflict over access to alien-derived technologies could trigger wars that make current conflicts seem trivial. The scientific establishment's reaction to confirmed alien technology would likely be chaotic and transformative. Peer review systems designed for incremental advances would be inadequate for understanding technologies that violate known physical laws. Research funding priorities would shift dramatically as universities and corporations scrambled to understand and replicate capabilities that could make entire industries obsolete. Religious institutions would face unprecedented challenges in integrating the reality of non-human intelligence with theological frameworks developed under assumptions of human uniqueness. Some faiths might adapt by expanding concepts of divine creation to encompass multiple intelligent species. Others might fragment under the pressure of revelations that challenge core beliefs about humanity's special relationship with the divine. The economic disruption could be swift and severe. Energy companies, transportation industries, and manufacturing sectors built around current technological limitations would face immediate obsolescence. While new industries would emerge around alien-derived technologies, the transition period could involve massive unemployment and social instability as entire economic structures adapted to new realities. Educational systems would need fundamental restructuring to prepare students for a world where the laws of physics operate differently than previously understood. Engineering programs would need to incorporate principles that current science considers impossible. Philosophy and social science curricula would need expansion to address questions about humanity's relationship with non-human intelligence. The psychological impact on individuals could range from wonder and excitement to existential crisis and depression. Learning that human technological achievement represents primitive fumbling compared to alien capabilities might inspire some, while devastating others' sense of human accomplishment and potential. Mental health systems would need preparation for entirely new categories of adjustment disorders. Yet, disclosure might also unleash human potential in unprecedented ways. Access to technologies that eliminate energy limitations could support massive expansion of scientific research and space exploration. Materials with impossible properties could enable construction projects that reshape Earth's environment for the better. Understanding of non-human intelligence might provide insights into consciousness and cognition that revolutionize medicine and psychology. The timing of any potential disclosure raises strategic questions about preparation and management. Gradual revelation over decades might allow societies to adapt slowly to new realities. Sudden disclosure could trigger rapid transformation, but also massive disruption and conflict. The choice of timing, if such choice exists, represents one of the most significant decisions in human history. The international coordination required for managed disclosure would be unprecedented in scope and complexity. Nations would need to cooperate in sharing access to technologies while preventing any single country from gaining decisive advantages. International institutions would need expansion to manage technologies that transcend current regulatory frameworks and enforcement capabilities. If S4 represents humanity's first systematic contact with non-human intelligence, even if that contact involves only recovered technology rather than direct communication, it marks a transition point between our species' isolated development and our emergence into a larger cosmic community. The decisions made about how to handle this transition could determine whether humanity thrives or struggles in that larger context. The ethical questions surrounding continued secrecy become more complex when considered from generational perspectives. Current leadership might argue that keeping these secrets protects present stability, but future generations might judge such decisions harshly if they delay humanity's access to technologies that could solve existential challenges like climate change or resource depletion. The possibility that S4's secrets might never be disclosed raises troubling questions about democratic governance and human rights. In democratic societies, citizens generally expect eventual access to information that affects their lives and futures. Technologies that could transform human civilization represent information of unprecedented significance for public policy and individual life choices. Whether S4 exists as described, serves as cover for advanced human technologies, or represents elaborate fiction, the questions it raises about secrecy, disclosure, and humanity's readiness for transformative knowledge remain relevant. Our species will eventually face decisions about how to handle technologies or discoveries that challenge fundamental assumptions about reality, whether they originate from alien sources or human innovation. The deepest secret may not be what's hidden beneath Papoose Lake, but what these questions reveal about humanity's readiness to confront truths that could transform our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. Whether we're prepared for such revelations, whether we deserve access to technologies that could reshape civilization, and whether we have the wisdom to use such knowledge responsibly remain open questions that each generation must answer for itself. The mystery of S4 continues because it embodies hopes and fears about humanity's future that extend far beyond questions of alien visitation or government secrecy. It represents our species' struggle to understand our potential and our limitations, our desire for transcendence balanced against our fear of obsolescence, our hunger for knowledge tempered by recognition of the responsibilities that come with powerful capabilities. Until the mountain doors open, until the secrets are revealed, or until we definitively learn that no secrets exist to be revealed, S4 will remain what it has always been, a mirror reflecting our deepest questions about who we are, where we're going, and whether we're ready for the journey ahead. Thank you for joining us in the depths beneath Papoose Lake. We've explored the most hidden corners of the most secret facility that may or may not exist.